The stars outside the window were cold and distant, their light flickering faintly against the dark void of space. Inside the cramped cockpit of the mining ship Stellar Seeker, Jeha leaned back in his seat, tapping his fingers idly on the armrest. He wasn't one for small talk, but the silence between him and the other two crew members felt heavier than usual tonight. Hyarin sat across from him, her head bent over a tablet filled with data about soil samples they had collected earlier that week. Kang Min, the pilot, was humming softly under his breath as he adjusted the controls, his movements precise but nervous. "Something feels off," Kang Min said suddenly, breaking the quiet. His voice carried an edge of unease. "I don't know what it is, but this planet, it's giving me bad vibes." Jeha rolled his eyes. "Bad vibes? You've been watching too many old sci-fi movies again. It's just another rock floating in space." But deep down, even Jeha couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. They were orbiting an uncharted planet, a bright blue dot on the galaxy map, surrounded by swirling clouds of gas. From afar, it looked harmless enough, almost beautiful. But beauty could be deceiving, especially out here where no human had ever set foot before. Hyarin glanced up from her tablet. Her calm demeanor masked any worry she might have felt. "If we're going to scan the surface properly, we'll need to get closer," she said simply. "Let's not jump to conclusions yet." Kang Min nodded reluctantly and steered the ship downward. As they descended through the atmosphere, the view outside changed dramatically. The planet below was lush and green, and dotted with strange, glowing plants that pulsed gently like living lights. Rivers snaked across the landscape, reflecting the eerie luminescence of the sky above. It was breathtaking, but also unsettling. Then it happened. A loud screech echoed through the ship as alarms blared. Kang Min cursed under his breath, his hands flying over the controls. "We've got a problem," he shouted. "The stabilizers aren't responding." Before anyone could react, the ship lurched violently, throwing them all forward. Hyarin grabbed onto her seat just in time, while Jeha slammed into the wall with a grunt. Outside the windows, the once serene scenery blurred into chaos as the ship spiraled toward the ground. "Brace yourselves!" Kang Min yelled, pulling desperately at the controls. But it was no use. With a deafening crash, the Stellar Seeker hit the surface, skidding through dense vegetation until it finally came to a stop. For a moment, there was only silence. Smoke filled the cabin, stinging their eyes and lungs. Slowly, Jeha pushed himself up, wincing at the sharp pain in his side. "Everyone okay?" he asked hoarsely. "I think so," Hyarin replied, coughing as she unbuckled herself from her seat. She looked pale but focused, already reaching for her emergency kit. Kang Min groaned, slumping back in his chair. "That was fun," he muttered sarcastically. "Remind me never to listen to your suggestions next time, Hyarin." Despite the tension, a small smile tugged at Hyarin's lips. "Well, at least we made it to the surface safely," she said dryly. Jeha stood up cautiously, assessing the damage around them. The cockpit was a mess, panels sparking, wires hanging loose, and shards of glass scattered everywhere. Beyond the cracked windshield, thick vines and glowing plants pressed against the hull as if trying to reclaim the intruder that had crashed into their world. "We need to check the rest of the ship," Jeha said firmly, "and find out how bad things really are." They moved carefully through the wreckage, stepping over debris and avoiding exposed wires. The cargo hold was intact, thankfully, containing most of their supplies. But the communication system was completely fried, leaving them stranded without a way to call for help. "This isn't good," Kang Min muttered, staring at the useless console. "Without comms, Earth won't even know where to look for us." "They'll send search parties eventually," Hyarin said, though her tone betrayed uncertainty. "Until then, we have to survive." Survival wasn't going to be easy. The planet's environment was harsher than they had anticipated. Strange noises echoed through the forest at night, low growls, high-pitched chirps, and rustling sounds that sent shivers down their spines. During the day, the heat was oppressive, forcing them to ration water carefully. And food? That was another challenge altogether. On the third day after the crash, Hirin suggested exploring the area for resources. There has to be something edible here, she reasoned. Plants, animals, anything we can use to keep ourselves alive. Jae-ha hesitated. He didn't trust this place, not after everything they'd been through, but staying cooped up in the wrecked ship wasn't helping either. Reluctantly, he agreed to join her. Kang-min tagged along, it clutching a makeshift spear he had fashioned from spare metal rods. Their first venture into the forest revealed wonders unlike anything they had seen before. Trees taller than skyscrapers stretched toward the sky, their trunks glowing faintly. Tiny creatures resembling squirrels darted between branches, emitting soft vibrations that resonated in the air. A river nearby sparkled unnaturally, its water shimmering with colors that shifted depending on the angle. "This place is incredible," Hirin whispered, awe evident in her voice. She knelt beside a cluster of mushrooms growing near the base of a tree, examining them closely. "These might be edible." "Or poisonous," Jae-ha interjected sharply. "Don't touch anything until we're sure." As they continued deeper into the forest, they encountered more bizarre sights. So large winged reptiles soared overhead, their scales catching the light. Towering plant-like beings ambled slowly through the undergrowth, their roots dragging behind them like tails. Everything seemed alive, not just the animals, but the very earth itself. By the time they returned to the ship, exhaustion weighed heavily on them. Yet despite the dangers, a flicker of hope remained. This alien world was strange, yes, but it was also full of possibilities. If they played their cards right, they might just stand a chance. Over the next few days, they began testing the local flora and fauna, learning which plants were safe to eat and which animals could be approached without triggering aggression. Progress was slow, and mistakes were made. Like when Kang-min accidentally angered a group of those squirrel-like creatures, causing them to swarm around him in a flurry of glowing fur. But gradually, they started adapting. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep them going, for now. As weeks turned into months, the reality of their situation sank in. Rescue wasn't coming anytime soon. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs, and fear lingered in the back of their minds. But amidst the struggle, something unexpected began to emerge: camaraderie. Despite their differences, Jae-ha, Hye-rin, and Kang-min found strength in each other, forming a bond that would prove crucial in the days ahead. The days grew longer, and the forest became less of an enemy and more of a puzzle waiting to be solved. Jae-ha, Hye-rin, and Kang-min spent most of their time venturing deeper into the alien wilderness, learning its rhythms and secrets. Each trip brought new discoveries, and some thrilling, others terrifying, but all vital for their survival. One morning, as the sun filtered through the glowing canopy above, they stumbled upon a clearing unlike anything they had seen before. The ground was covered in soft moss that glowed faintly underfoot, and strange creatures darted around, their movements quick and unpredictable. These were the furflits, small squirrel-like beings with sleek fur that shimmered like liquid silver. Their eyes were large and curious, always watching, always studying. At first, the furflits kept their distance, chirping softly to each other as if debating whether the humans posed a threat. But when Hye-rin crouched down and held out a piece of dried fruit they had salvaged from the ship, one of them hesitantly approached. It sniffed the air, its tiny nose twitching, before taking the offering in its mouth. The moment it bit into the fruit, a low vibration rippled through its body, a soothing hum that seemed to calm everyone nearby. "Well, I'll be damned," Kang-min muttered, leaning closer. "These little guys are like living mood lamps." Jae-ha frowned, but couldn't deny the effect the vibration had on him. His shoulders relaxed, and for the first time in weeks, he felt something close to peace. "They're useful," he admitted grudgingly. "If we can figure out how to work with them, they might help us find food or warn us about danger." Hyarin nodded, already jotting notes in her journal. "We should try to bond with them. They seem intelligent enough to understand basic commands." Over the next few days, they experimented with different ways to interact with the furflits. Offering food worked best, especially fruits native to the planet, which the creatures seemed to adore. Slowly, the furflits began following them wherever they went, chirping excitedly whenever they spotted something interesting, like clusters of edible berries hidden among the vines. Jeha even named one of them Pebble, after the way its fur sparkled like polished stone in the sunlight. But the furflits weren't the only locals worth getting to know. On another expedition, the trio encountered the sky gliders, elegant winged reptiles that soared gracefully through the skies. With scales that caught the light and wingspans wide enough to block out the sun, they were both majestic and intimidating. At first, the sky gliders avoided the humans entirely, circling high above the treetops. But Kang Min, ever the daredevil, decided to test their curiosity. Watch this," he said with a grin, grabbing a shiny piece of metal from his pack. He waved it in the air, catching the sunlight. Within moments, a sky glider swooped down, landing gracefully on a nearby branch. Its sharp eyes locked onto the reflective surface, tilting its head curiously. "They're smart," Hyarin observed, her voice hushed with awe. "Smart enough to recognize value." Kang Min tossed the metal object gently toward the creature. To their amazement, the sky glider caught it mid-air, examining it closely before letting out a series of melodic clicks. From then on, the sky gliders became regular visitors, often perching near the crash site to observe the humans. Over time, they learned to mimic simple gestures like pointing or waving, earning themselves the nickname Helpers from Kang Min. "But they're like flying assistants," he joked one afternoon as a sky glider delivered a bundle of glowing leaves he had dropped earlier. "Imagine having these guys do all our heavy lifting, or at least the fun stuff." While the sky gliders proved invaluable for scouting and retrieving items, it was the third species that truly changed everything: the root walkers. Towering plant-animal hybrids, they moved slowly across the landscape, their massive forms casting long shadows over the forest floor. Their bodies were covered in thick bark-like skin, and their roots stretched deep into the earth, making every step deliberate and purposeful. At first, the root walkers ignored the humans completely, showing no interest in their presence. But Hyarin noticed something peculiar during one of their encounters. And whenever Kang Min played a tune on his harmonica, an old habit he'd picked up back on Earth, the root walkers would pause, turning their heads slightly as if listening intently. "It's the music," she realized aloud. "They respond to sound." Encouraged by this discovery, they began experimenting with different noises. Clapping, whistling, even singing, all drew the root walkers' attention. Eventually, they figured out how to guide them using rhythmic patterns. One day, when a fallen tree blocked their path back to the ship, they managed to coax a root walker into helping them clear the debris. Its strength was unmatched, ripping the massive trunk apart with ease. "These three species, they're incredible," Hyarin said one evening as they sat around a makeshift campfire. Her face was illuminated by the flickering flames, and her expression thoughtful. "Each has its own role in this ecosystem, and now they're becoming part of ours too." Jeha nodded, though he remained cautious. "We still don't know everything about them. There could be risks we haven't thought of yet." Kang Min laughed, leaning back against a log. "Risks? Sure. But without them, we'd still be stuck eating those bland ration bars and hoping not to starve. I say we keep working with them. They've earned their place in team survival." As the weeks passed, the bond between the humans and the alien species grew stronger. The furflits became constant companions, guiding them to food sources and acting as early warning systems for potential threats. The sky gliders served as aerial scouts, mapping out safe routes and keeping watch for predators lurking in the shadows. And the root walkers provided brute strength whenever heavy lifting was required, whether it was moving debris or fortifying their shelter. Yet despite their progress, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Living in such close quarters, with limited resources and constant uncertainty, took its toll on everyone. Jaeha's skepticism clashed with Kang Min's impulsiveness, while Hee-rin often found herself caught in the middle, trying to mediate their arguments. One particularly heated disagreement erupted after a failed attempt to domesticate a group of aggressive insect-like creatures. Jae-ha blamed Kang Min for rushing in without a plan, while Kang Min accused Jae-ha of being too cautious. Voices rose until Hye-rin finally stepped in, her tone firm but calm. "We're not going to survive if we keep fighting like this," she said, her gaze steady. "We need to trust each other, and trust the animals we've bonded with. They've given us a chance to live. Don't waste it." Her words struck a nerve. For a moment there was silence, broken only by the distant hum of a furflit perched on a nearby branch. Then, reluctantly, Jae-ha and Kang Min nodded, muttering apologies under their breath. From that day forward, they focused on working together, not just as individuals, but as a team united by necessity and shared purpose. Little did they know, their newfound alliance would soon be put to the ultimate test. Survival wasn't just about adapting to the planet, it was about finding meaning in the struggle. And in the process, they were beginning to carve out a life, one step, one discovery, one connection at a time. It started as a joke, but jokes had a way of taking root in moments of boredom. One evening, after another long day of gathering food and repairing the ship's damaged systems, Kang Min leaned back against a log and sighed dramatically. "You know what we need?" he said, his voice dripping with mock seriousness. "A cafe." Jae-ha glanced up from sharpening a makeshift spear, his brow furrowed. "A what?" "A cafe," Kang Min repeated, gesturing grandly at the glowing forest around them. "A place where we can sit down, relax, and drink something warm for once. Maybe even serve those weird alien flowers you've been collecting, Hye-rin." Hye-rin paused mid-note-taking, her pen hovering over her journal. She tilted her head thoughtfully. "That's not actually a bad idea," she admitted slowly. "Nay, if we can figure out how to brew something edible, or at least drinkable, we might have a way to pass the time." Jae-ha rolled his eyes. "Are you too serious? We're stranded on an alien planet barely surviving, and you want to open a cafe?" Kang Min grinned. "Why not? It'll keep us busy. Besides, who says survival has to be boring?" Despite Jae-ha's skepticism, the idea stuck. Over the next few days, they began experimenting with local plants, testing their flavors and effects. Hye-rin took charge of the process, carefully documenting each trial. Some attempts ended disastrously, like the time Kang Min accidentally brewed a batch that made everyone's tongues tingle uncontrollably. But eventually, they struck gold. One particular flower, which glowed faintly blue and emitted a sweet aroma, produced a liquid that tasted surprisingly similar to coffee when fermented. It wasn't perfect, it had a slightly tangy aftertaste, but it was close enough to satisfy their cravings for something familiar. They called it Blue Brew, and it quickly became a staple of their daily routine. With their drinks sorted, they turned their attention to setting up the cafe itself. Using materials salvaged from the crashed ship, they built a small outdoor space near their campsite. The root walkers played a crucial role here, using their immense strength to clear debris and arrange logs into makeshift tables and chairs. Their towering forms provided natural shade, creating a cozy atmosphere beneath their leafy canopies. The sky gliders, meanwhile, proved excellent wait staff. With some training, as they learned to carry small trays of blue brew attached to their wings, delivering drinks to customers with surprising precision. Even the furflets got involved, scampering around to collect empty cups and return them to the brewing station. "It's ridiculous," Jeha muttered one afternoon as he watched Pebble balance a cup on its tiny head. "This whole thing is ridiculous." But despite his grumbling, he couldn't deny the sense of accomplishment they all felt. For the first time since the crash, they weren't just surviving, they were thriving. The cafe gave them purpose, a reason to wake up each morning beyond sheer necessity. And it wasn't just for them. Word spread quickly among the alien species, drawing curious visitors from across the forest. At first, the aliens came cautiously, peeking out from behind trees or hovering overhead. But once they saw the humans interacting peacefully with the furflets, skygliders, and rootwalkers, they grew bolder. Strange creatures unlike any the trio had encountered before began appearing, some resembling insects, others looking like walking crystals. Each brought offerings in exchange for a taste of the blue brew, shiny stones, rare fruits, or intricate trinkets carved from bone-like material. "These guys are smarter than we thought," Kong Min said one day, holding up a shimmering crystal pendant gifted by a tentacled creature. "They're trading with us, like actual trade." Hyarin nodded, her eyes shining with excitement. "This could change everything. If we can establish trust with the locals, maybe we can build something sustainable here, something that lasts even if rescue never comes." Jeha remained skeptical, and though less vocal about it now. He still worried about the risks, about putting too much faith in beings they barely understood. But watching the interactions unfold, the skygliders soaring gracefully overhead, the furflets darting playfully between tables, the rootwalkers standing guard like silent sentinels, he couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. As weeks passed, the cafe evolved into more than just a novelty. It became a hub of activity, a meeting place where humans and aliens alike gathered to share stories, exchange goods, and simply enjoy each other's company. Hyarin introduced new drinks made from different plants, each with unique flavors and effects. Some were energizing, others calming, and a few even seemed to enhance creativity, judging by the sudden bursts of melodic clicks from the skygliders. Kang Min took pride in organizing events, hosting impromptu concerts using his harmonica and encouraging the rootwalkers to join in with rhythmic stomps. The vibrations resonated through the ground, creating a symphony of sound that drew crowds from miles away. Even Jeha found himself participating occasionally, carving small figurines from wood to sell or trade with the alien visitors. For the first time since the crash, life felt almost normal. Almost. But normalcy has a way of lulling people into complacency, and complacency invites trouble. It came quietly at first, in the form of distant noises, shouts, crashes, and the unmistakable hum of engines cutting through the air. At first, they dismissed it as wildlife or weather patterns, but when the sounds grew louder and closer, reality hit hard. "They're not alone," Hyarin whispered one evening, staring out into the darkened forest. Her voice was tight with unease. "Someone else is here." Jeha stood beside her, his jaw clenched. In the distance, flickering lights pierced the trees, moving steadily toward their camp. "Get everyone inside," he ordered sharply. "Now!" Panic rippled through the clearing as the trio scrambled to gather their alien companions and retreat to the safety of their makeshift shelter. The skygliders took to the skies, while the rootwalkers formed a protective barrier around the perimeter. The furflets huddled together, their usual chirps replaced by anxious squeaks. As the lights drew nearer, revealing figures clad in mismatched armor and wielding crude weapons, Jeha felt a chill run down his spine. These weren't rescuers, and they were scavengers, and they looked ready to take whatever they wanted. "Whatever happens next," Hyarin said softly, clutching her journal tightly to her chest, "we stick together." Jeha nodded, gripping the spear in his hand. Beside him, Kang Min tightened his grip on a metal rod, his usual humor replaced by grim determination. The cafe had brought them joy, connection, and a sense of belonging. Now it would test their resolve and their ability to defend what they had built. Survival wasn't just about adapting anymore. It was about protecting the fragile world they had created, no matter the cost. The scavengers arrived at dawn, their boots crunching loudly against the glowing moss that carpeted the forest floor. There were 5 of them, clad in patched-up armor and armed with makeshift weapons, blades welded from scrap metal, crude rifles that looked like they might explode if fired, and clubs wrapped in barbed wire. They moved with an air of arrogance, as if the planet belonged to them already. Leading the group was a man named Dong-Sik, his face scarred and his eyes sharp with greed. "Well, well," Dong-Sik said, smirking as he surveyed the scene before him. The cafe was still intact, its tables littered with cups and trays, though now abandoned. Sky gliders circled nervously above, while root walkers stood guard near the edges of the clearing. "Looks like we've found ourselves a little paradise." Jae-ha stepped forward, his spear gripped tightly in his hand. Behind him, Hye-rin and Kang-min flanked him, their expressions tense but resolute. "Who are you?" Jae-ha demanded, his voice steady despite the knot of fear tightening in his chest. Dong-Sik chuckled, raising his hands mockingly. "Just travelers passing through, but it seems you folks have been busy making yourselves comfortable." His gaze swept over the setup, the root walkers' towering forms, the sky gliders gliding overhead, and the scattered remnants of blue brew on the tables. "Impressive work. Too bad you won't get to enjoy it for much longer." Kang-min stepped forward angrily, pointing his metal rod at Dong-Sik. "This is our place. We built it with our own hands, and with help from the locals. You're not taking anything from us." Dong-Sik's smile faded, replaced by a cold glare. He gestured to one of his men, who raised his rifle threateningly. "Listen, kid. This isn't a negotiation. You can either hand over your supplies, or we'll take them by force. Your choice." Hye-rin stepped between them, her calm demeanor masking the storm brewing inside her. "There's no need for violence," she said firmly. "We have enough resources to share. If you leave peacefully, we can trade—" "Trade?" Dong-Sik interrupted, laughing harshly. "You think I'm here to bargain? No, sweetheart, I'm here to win." With a snap of his fingers, 2 of his men surged forward, grabbing hold of a nearby sky glider that had landed too close to the ground. The creature let out a panicked squawk, flapping its wings desperately as it was dragged toward the scavengers. "No!" Hye-rin shouted, lunging forward instinctively. Jae-ha caught her arm, holding her back. "Let it go!" she cried, her voice cracking with emotion. Dong-Sik ignored her, instead turning to the struggling sky glider with a cruel grin. "These flying rats could be useful," he mused aloud. "Maybe they'll fetch a good price back home." Kang-min clenched his fists, fury boiling over. "Leave it alone!" he yelled, stepping closer. "It's not yours to take." Before anyone could react, one of the scavengers swung his club at Kang-min, striking him hard across the shoulder. Kang-min staggered back, pain flashing across his face, but he didn't fall. Instead, he charged forward, tackling the attacker to the ground. Chaos erupted instantly. The other scavengers rushed in, weapons swinging wildly, while the trio fought back with everything they had. Amid the chaos, something unexpected happened. The root walkers, who had been standing silently on the sidelines, began stomping their massive feet in unison. The vibrations shook the ground violently, throwing everyone off balance. Dong-Sik stumbled backward, shouting orders to his men. But the aliens weren't done yet. The sky gliders dove down en masse, swooping low and clawing at the scavengers with razor-sharp talons. Even the furflits joined in, swarming around the invaders and biting at exposed skin. "What the hell is this?" Dong-Sik roared, shielding his face as a sky glider knocked the rifle from his hands. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. Hye-rin seized the moment. Stepping away from the fray, she pulled out her harmonica, the same one Kang-min had used during their concerts. and began playing a sharp, rhythmic tune. The notes cut through the air like a blade, drawing the attention of every alien in the vicinity. The root walkers responded immediately, moving in sync with the music. Their roots lashed out, tangling around the scavengers' legs and pinning them in place. The sky gliders added to the assault, dropping small rocks and debris onto the trapped men below. Dongsik tried to break free, but a root walker loomed over him, its massive form casting a shadow that swallowed him whole. He froze, staring up at the towering creature with wide eyes. "Fine!" he spat, raising his hands in surrender. "We'll leave! Just call them off!" Jeha approached cautiously, his spear pointed directly at Dongsik's throat. "Get out of here!" he growled. "And don't come back!" Without another word, the scavengers scrambled to their feet, limping toward the edge of the clearing. Dongsik shot one last venomous glare at the trio before disappearing into the forest, his men trailing behind him. When the dust settled, silence fell over the camp. The root walkers returned to their positions, even their movements slow and deliberate. The sky gliders perched on nearby branches, preening their feathers and chirping softly. Even the furflits seemed calmer, curling up in patches of sunlight. Kang Min sat down heavily on a log, wincing as he touched his bruised shoulder. "That was insane," he muttered, shaking his head. "Did we really just fight off those guys with alien backup?" Hairin knelt beside him, checking his injury. "They protected us," she said softly, glancing at the root walkers and sky gliders. "They understand loyalty and trust." Jeha leaned against a tree, exhaling deeply. His heart was still racing, but beneath the adrenaline, he felt a strange sense of pride. They hadn't just survived. They had defended what mattered most. "We owe them," he said quietly. "All of them." For the rest of the day, they worked together to repair the damage caused by the skirmish. Broken tables were fixed, scattered items gathered, and spilled blue brew cleaned up. By evening, the cafe looked almost as it had before, though the atmosphere was different now. There was a newfound weight to their actions, a recognition of how fragile their peace truly was. As they sat around the fire that night, exhaustion weighing heavily on their shoulders, Hyerin spoke up. "Today proved something important," she said, her voice thoughtful. "We're stronger together, not just us three, but all of us, humans and aliens alike." Kang Min nodded, rubbing his sore shoulder. "Yeah. Those scavengers thought they could walk in and take whatever they wanted, but they underestimated us and our friends." Jeha stared into the flames, his expression unreadable. For so long, he had doubted this place, doubted whether they could ever truly belong here. But tonight, surrounded by the glow of the forest and the hum of the furflits, he felt something shift inside him. Maybe survival wasn't just about enduring hardship, it was about finding connection, even in the most unlikely places. And maybe, just maybe, they had created something worth fighting for. Days passed without further incident. The scavengers never returned, and life at the cafe slowly returned to normal. Yet the memory of the conflict lingered, a reminder of the dangers lurking beyond their small sanctuary. Each cup of blue brew served, each song played for the root walkers, each playful chase with the furflits carried a deeper significance now, a celebration of resilience, unity, and hope. Not even as they waited for rescue or accepted the possibility that it might never come, they knew one thing for certain. They had built something extraordinary, something worth protecting. 6 months had passed since the crash. 6 months of survival, discovery, conflict, and connection. The forest around them no longer felt alien. It was home. The glowing plants, the hum of the furflits, the graceful flight of the sky gliders, and the steady presence of the root walkers were as familiar to Jeha, Hairin, and Kang Min as their own breaths. Life at the cafe had become a rhythm, a delicate balance between humans and aliens, work and rest, struggle and joy. But deep down, they all knew this couldn't last forever. Someday rescue would come, or they'd have to leave on their own terms. They tried not to think about it too much. Instead, they focused on the present, cherishing each day as it came. One morning, that fragile peace was shattered. The sky above the forest lit up with a blinding flash, followed by the deafening roar of engines cutting through the air. Jay-Ha, who had been repairing a table near the edge of the clearing, dropped his tools and shielded his eyes. "What's happening?" he shouted over the noise. Hyarin emerged from the brewing station, her face pale, but determined. "It's a ship," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "A rescue ship." Kangmin ran out from behind the supply tent, waving his arms wildly. "Finally! Took them long enough!" he yelled, laughing despite the lump in his throat. The trio stood frozen for a moment, watching as the sleek silver vessel descended slowly, its landing thrusters kicking up clouds of glowing moss. When the dust settled, a ramp extended from the ship, and figures in clean uniforms stepped out, their faces hidden behind helmets. One of them raised a hand in greeting, but the gesture felt distant, almost surreal. Jay-Ha glanced around at the scene. The cafe, the animals, the forest, and felt a pang of unease. This place, which had once seemed so hostile, now felt like part of him. Leaving it behind felt impossible. The rescue team approached cautiously, scanning the area with advanced devices. Their leader, a woman with sharp features and an authoritative tone, introduced herself as Captain Yoon. "You're the crew of the Stellar Seeker?" she asked, her voice clipped but kind. "Yes," Hyarin replied, stepping forward. "We've been stranded here for 6 months." Captain Yoon nodded, her gaze sweeping over the makeshift cafe and the alien species gathered nearby. "This is impressive," she admitted, her tone softening. "You've adapted well." "We didn't do it alone," Kang Min said, gesturing to the furflits perched on logs, the sky gliders gliding overhead, and the root walkers standing guard. "These guys helped us survive." The captain's eyes widened slightly, clearly surprised by the level of cooperation between humans and aliens. "Unbelievable," she murmured. "We'll need to document everything before we leave." "Leave?" Jay-Ha echoed, his stomach sinking. He hadn't realized how final that word would sound. Captain Yoon turned to him, her expression firm but compassionate. "You can't stay here indefinitely. Earth needs to know what you've discovered and what's possible out here." The weight of her words hit hard. Of course they couldn't stay, but leaving meant saying goodbye to the forest, to the cafe, to the creatures who had become their friends. It meant leaving behind the life they had built together. That evening, after the rescue team had set up camp and begun cataloging their findings, the trio sat around the fire one last time. The mood was heavy, filled with unspoken emotions. Even the animals seemed to sense something was wrong. The furflits stayed unusually close, and the sky gliders circled low, their melodic clicks softer than usual. "I don't want to go," Kang Min said finally, breaking the silence. His voice cracked, betraying the bravado he usually wore like armor. "This place, it's home now." Hyarin nodded, clutching her journal tightly to her chest. "I feel the same way, but staying isn't an option. Not if we want to share what we've learned." Jay-Ha stared into the flames, his jaw clenched. For months he had resisted the idea of belonging here, but now, faced with the prospect of leaving, he realized how deeply rooted he had become. "We'll find a way to protect them," he said firmly. "The root walkers, the sky gliders, the furflits, they trusted us. We owe them that much." The next morning, they made their decision. They would return to Earth, but not without ensuring the safety of their alien companions. Using materials from the crashed ship, they constructed a series of protective barriers around the clearing, reinforcing the natural defenses already provided by the root walkers. They left behind supplies, including instructions on how to brew blue brew, written in simple symbols the sky gliders could mimic. When it was time to board the rescue ship, the farewell was bittersweet. Pebble the furflit refused to let go of Jeha's hand until the very last second, its tiny body trembling with what could only be described as grief. The sky gliders hovered nearby, letting out mournful clicks, while the root walkers stomped their feet in a slow, rhythmic pattern, a sound that resonated deep within the trio's hearts. As the ship ascended, carrying them away from the planet below, none of them spoke. They simply watched through the windows as the glowing forest grew smaller and smaller, eventually disappearing into the vastness of space. Back on Earth, news of their survival spread quickly. Scientists marveled at their story, journalists clamored for interviews, and ordinary people found inspiration in their tale of resilience and cooperation. Jeha, Inhirin and Kang Min became reluctant celebrities, thrust into a world that felt both familiar and foreign. But even amid the chaos, they stayed connected. Together they wrote a memoir titled Rescue Came After 6 Months, detailing their journey and the lessons they had learned. The book sparked debates about humanity's role in the universe, about whether exploration should focus on domination or collaboration. For Jeha, the experience changed him in ways he couldn't fully articulate. He still preferred solitude, still doubted the intentions of others, but he also understood now that trust, when earned, could change everything. Hirin returned to her work as a botanist, using her knowledge of alien plant life to pioneer new agricultural techniques. And Kang Min? He opened a small cafe in the city, naming it after the one they had left behind. It wasn't quite the same, but it carried the spirit of their adventure, the hope, the laughter, the bonds forged in the most unexpected of places. Years later, when asked about their time on the planet, Jeha would often pause, his gaze distant. "We didn't just survive," he would say finally. "We lived, and sometimes living means finding family where you least expect it." Because even though they were millions of miles apart, the memory of the glowing forest, the hum of the furflits, and the warmth of shared cups of blue brew remained etched in their hearts. A reminder that some connections transcended distance, time, and even species. And in the quiet moments, when the world felt overwhelming, Jeha would swear he could still hear Pebble's soft chirp echoing faintly in the back of his mind.